Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're just watching this for the first time, kindly hit the subscribe button, right? So you're very welcome. We're going to be learning how to make this dress for your baby girl. Now I had these two ideas and decided to go for idea one, right? Yeah, basically I have my pattern paper. I've decided to for the style we would need to fold our paper or our pattern paper in two, right? So that by the time we are done drafting, we'll open up to have the full front view, right? So the first thing you're going to do is take your ruler and draw a guideline. We want to draft the basic block for this child, right? So we'll draw that guideline there. Now on the guideline, we're going to take the child's measurement we want to get the neckline measurement. We're going to mark 3 inches by 2.5, right? So that the neckline is not too wide, right? We're just creating the guidelines to get our neckline. I'm going to connect those markings with a straight ruler to create a box, right? Yeah, so create that box there. Go ahead and create the box there. And then from the center front, we're just going to go in by half inch, and then from the center in a diagonal manner we're going up by 1 inch, and then from the guideline on the top part of the paper there we're coming down by half inch. Now if you have a ruler, the curve rule that has the neckline curve, you can just use that to connect, but then I'm using my hands to just blend it. So this her measurement, her shoulder measurement is 14 divided by 2, that's 7. So I'm just going to place the tape rule on the center front and mark 7. I'm going to mark 7 all the way down also, just to guide my ruler to give me a straight line, right? So I'm marking 7 inch all the way down, and then I'll take my ruler and draw a straight line. That's to give me my guideline for my shoulder slope and my armhole depth, my armhole depth, right? So once I've done that, I'm going to mark my shoulder slope. I'm marking 3/4. I'm using 3/4 for the armhole depth, and then I'll just connect with a straight line to the neck point. So here we have the neck point and we have the shoulder. After that, I'll determine her armhole depth. I'm using 7 inches for her armhole depth. I'm marking these markings all the way to her center front, right? And then I'm going to use a straight line to connect all those markings to give us our bust line. All right, so the next thing I want to do is place my tape rule on the shoulder slope and on the bust line to get the half of that measurement. So I'm dividing that line into 2 to give us our chest line. All right, so I'll draw and connect all the way to our center front, and that will be our chest line. Now on our chest line, on our bust line, we want to do our bust measurements divided by 4. On our bust measurement, we want to do the child's bust measurement divided by 4. That's 31 divided by 4. I'll just fold my tape rule into 4, and then I'll place that on the bust line, and I'll mark where that measure. This works faster for me than taking the calculator, but if you can use the calculator to mark, that's fine. You can just mark that there, right? So once we have done that, we want to connect. So what's happening here is that from the guideline, I went in by 1 inch on the chest line, and then I'm blending it in to connect from the shoulder slope to the bust measurement, right? Yeah, so I'm connecting that to our bust measurement in a slope. If you have the armhole slope curve ruler, please use the slope. It's going to be easier for you to just connect that, right? So Along the line, I noticed that armhole, the chest measurement is going to be, the armhole is going to be too wide for the child. So I decided to go with 1/2 inch. From the guideline, I went in by 1/2 inch, and then I'm just going to reconnect my armhole, my arm sky, right? So I'm connecting from the shoulder slope to the markings on the chest line, and then connecting it back to the bust measurement. This looks better. Excellent. All right, so we go on to the next step, right? I'm just trying to blend in to give us a smooth look on our armhole. Don't forget to use an armhole curve if you do have one. Now we want to get the half length of the child, which is 13. So I place it on the center of the child's shoulder and I mark 13, and I'll just connect that from the center front. As you can see, that's our waistline level. That's our waistline level. Now on this line, we're going to take our waist measurement divided by 4, and whatever it is you get, you mark it there. So I'm just going to do what I've done earlier. I'll get my waist measurement, fold my tape rule into 4. Our waist measurement is 27 divided by 4. And I place it on the center front and mark where that whatever it is that it gives me. Don't forget you're free to use your calculator to do that calculation, right? And then I'll get my side seams by connecting the bust to the waist measurement, and there I have my center front. That's the chest line, that's the bust line, and that's the waist line. Yeah, so that's that for the basic block of that child, right? And then I'm just going to go ahead and add my sewing allowance around the waistline. I use 1/2 inch for the waistline. I'm going to mark it all the way, and then I use 1 inch by the sides. I use 1 inch by the sides. I'm going to mark it all the way. And then we use 1/4 inch around the armhole. 1/4 inch around the armhole. I'm going to mark that all the way to our shoulder. We use 1/4 inch also, all the way to our shoulder slope. And then to our shoulder we mark 1/4 inch also, 1/4 inch on the shoulder slope. We mark 1/4 inch. And on the neckline we also mark 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch on the neckline. And then we just blend all our markings. On the shoulder we just draw the blend all the markings on. All right, so on to the next part. We want to now draft the back pattern. All right, so for the back pattern we draw a guideline just like we did for the front, but would first of all mark out our zipper allowance. So I'm using 1 inch for our zipper allowance. I'm just going to mark that all the way down and then fold. So we label zip allowance, and then we'll fold that allowance in. We're folding that allowance in just to help you stay away from it. But if you can and you're sure that you will not make the mistake, we'll just go ahead and continue drafting. So we do 3, but this time around by 1 inch. 1 inch, 3 by 1 inch, and then we'll create a box-like guideline for our neckline. We'll connect that with a straight line to create the box-like guideline. The guideline is just to help us get our neckline. Now on the center back there, we're going to go in by 1 inch. We'll go in by 1 inch, and then we'll connect with a curve from that marking all the way directly to that point there, and that will be our neck point, right? And then from the center back, so if I don't want to go through all the processes like that we have gone before, all I need to do is just, I'm going to place my center. I got my front here, and remember I've added my sewing allowance, so I'm just going to be mindful of my sewing allowance, and I'm just going to trace around. That's what I've just done. I traced around my front parts, paying attention to my allowance. So there are allowances already on the sides and the waistline, but I didn't add the allowance on the shoulder slope. So I'm just going to add that sewing allowance there, 1/4 inch, right? So there's no difference between our front and our back. And I'm also going to add my sewing allowance on the neckline, 1/4 inch. So what I just did was take my center front and trace around it after I had created my neckline for the back. And then I did not trace around the sewing allowance on the shoulder and on the neck. That's what I've just added, but every other thing has been added. On the armhole, all allowances has been added. On the side seam, all allowances has been added, right? So I'm just writing all allowances has been added, so that if I'm going to be giving this to someone to cut and sew, they would know that all allowances has been added, and we just label what that pattern is. This is our basic block for the back. That's the chest line, the bust line, the waistline, and that's a center back, and we have our back pattern ready. Yeah, that's that. All right, so now we want to create the style on our front pattern. So we have our basic block now fully opened, well labeled, right? I've ruled out all the lines to show us all the line. Now I want to create that design detail, and I'm just going to flow from our front, like I want to create a sweetheart, right? And then I'll just blend it to the side of the other part of our front. So that's what I just did. I slightly went in an inverted 2, right? And then I just went all the way to the side to create that look, right? And then I'll just, now that I've gotten that look, I'm just going to use my pencil to run boldly across, right? Just going to run my pencil boldly across so that you can see what I've created. So from the armhole there, I slanted up like I'm going to create a sweetheart neckline, and then I just slanted down in an inverted 2 like manner. That's it. And then I'm sliding it all the way to the side of our front. And we've created our front. I'm labeling it white. We're cutting that on the white Ankara, and we're cutting this on the pink Ankara. And then by the time we cut that out, we're going to add 1/4 inch on both ends, right? 1/4 allowance on the white part, and then 1/4 inch also on this other part. I'm labeling it because I'm going to just cut through. On the normal day, I'm supposed to trace that out, and but for me it's a long process, so I'm just going to cut that through and then place on fabric. Here's our fabric. These are the fabrics we're going to be using, and I'm just going to use the white part for the other side and the pink for the other side. Now this is for the upper part of the basic bodice. That's the upper part. I'm just going to cut. That's the lower part. So now I'm going to just place on fabric and I'm going to cut. That's it. Now I have placed opened wide. The right side of my fabric is facing me, and I'm just going to add my sewing allowances around that area and cut off. All other allowances has been added, right? So it's just around that area I'm going to mark. The same thing I did for the lower part. I added the sewing allowance on the upper part that way. Yes, we already have allowance on the armhole, so I just followed that and then went all the way to the side, and then I'm just going to cut out. Now we have done that, we have cut that. You can see we have our upper part and our lower part. I hope you can see that clearly. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. All right, so to cut the lower part, we've decided to divide it into 8 inches and 14 inches. Her full length is 21. Yeah, the full length is 21, and then we're cutting the upper, 22, excuse me. So we have 8 inches for the upper part, which we're going to be cutting in pink, and then the other part we're going to be using the method of gathers, right? I use 3 yards for the lower part of the dress, and I'm just going to cut the pink on 8 inches. That's the fabric there. I'm just going to mark 8 inches and cut out. So I'm marking 8.5 inches because I'm going to be joining it to the white part of the fabric. So I've marked 8.5. The half inch is to join, all right, to give us room to join. I'm just going to cut through with my scissors. All right, so for the white part, we decided to use 15 inches because of the sewing allowance for the joining, half inch for the joining, and then half inch for the waistline. So I've added an extra 1 inch, which is 15, and I'm just going to mark that out on 15 and cut out. Yes, thank you for watching. Please do subscribe, share with friends, and let's grow this channel. Thank you.